The word classic is thrown around a lot, and in many cases, used incorrectly. Just to be clear, just because something is old doesn't make it a classic. I'll go to the vintage game store and they'll advertise classics such as, and then I'll see Madden 2003, which actually is a pretty fun game. Nah, I'm talking about what really makes a video game a classic. I've recently been replaying many old titles from my childhood, from Ocarina of Time to Shrek 2. In doing so, I've realized that so many games have aged very poorly. The PlayStation 2 may be the worst offender of this. Back then, we had a video game coincide with every movie that came out. I convinced my friend Rodney to play Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire video game with me. Now, back when I was a kid, this game was a blast. You went through a bunch of different levels, collecting beans, fighting monsters. There were puzzles, collectibles, and on top of that, it was co-op. How could it not be fun? Just like the modern cash grabs of today, games like these will be lost to time and are nothing more than a digital bowel. In my opinion, the most important aspect of a classic is that it doesn't feel old. You shouldn't get angry by trying to traverse the world. Kirby's Adventure, a game from 1993, still feels modern by today's standards. Over the holidays, I couldn't put this game down. This game is idiot-proof by giving you the option to fly over everything or face it down like a man. When Kirby moves, there's momentum and weight, and when that's laid over the top of good music, it's something magical. I felt nostalgic, and I never even played before, but perhaps my favorite part, and what makes it stand out, is how fluid it feels to control Kirby. My biggest issue with many games is how stiff a character can feel. A perfect game allows you to seamlessly figure out the rhythm of a character's movement. A bad example of this is GTA. I don't, and have never liked the way GTA characters have handled. It just feels slow and heavy to do anything, but I'm usually just in it for the story, so, who cares? But a good example of this, sticking with the third-person theme, is Mass Effect 3. Cover-to-cover movement is snappy, Shepard feels like she's running at Mach 10, and of course, the roll. Ah! Perfection. Now, if only they could have applied that same effort towards the... It's not just movement. A classic game at least has to have a good yarn, and all that really matters is how you spin it. Yeah, I've seen Link save Zelda, but has he done it as a wolf? Has he done it as a sailor? Has he done it as an engineer? Or a bird tamer? Or an engineer again? It doesn't always have to reinvent the wheel. It just has to be memorable. And have characters that leave a lasting impression on you. When you see a red M in a hat, you know that it's Mario, and you know what you're getting yourself into. When you see a grizzled cowboy with a dark past trying to come to terms with what he's done throughout his life, and sit with him as the sun rises on a new, hopefully better world. You realize you had no idea what you signed up for. And you begin to understand that an entire team of people came together, working tirelessly, to take you on an adventure in an incredible new world, shaped entirely by imagination and beautiful. This one might be controversial. While I don't think graphics necessarily make or break a game, I do believe that it can have a huge impact on replayability. This is especially the case over decades. The expression aged like milk can accurately describe a vast majority of games that went for a realistic look, because that definition is constantly changing due to technological advancements. And unless your game gets a remaster, it's gonna look like shit, and it's gonna be tough to approach for newcomers. How can anyone be expected to look at this for several hours? On the other side of the fence, let's take a look at my main squeeze, the Sly Cooper series. These games are perfect to me. Controlling Sly or anyone in the game feels great. The story obviously is silly because it's about a talking raccoon, but it's still very compelling in every single title. However, what really sets it apart, and where it shines like a beacon among all other games from its era, is art direction. Sly Cooper went for a cartoony, almost comic book look that holds up to this day. This world is oversaturated with vibrant colors. There's intention behind every sparkle, shine, and shadow. You could play this game 100 years from now, and it'd still be beautiful, because it picked the target it could hit. Unlike another certain stealth game that I loved as a kid, Assassin's Creed 1, at the time of its release, was incredible. It blew my mind. I thought, this is it. They're never gonna get closer to realistic graphics than this. I felt like I was watching a movie. But that was then. Now? This game looks like shit. The environments are dull and lifeless. The human models, if you can still call them that, look horrible. I'll never hate on this game too much because it deserved every accolade it received. But the passage of time has not been kind to this and so many other realistic looking games. You can't lose yourself in environments like GTA and Spider-Man 2 and so many more just because you're constantly being reminded by the constraints of the time period by old textures and empty worlds. Obviously, for some cases, it's not the artist's fault. They did the best for their time. Studios always want the cutting edge look, and budgets and time aren't unlimited. Old games suffering for their then realistic graphics are just yet another victim of I think many people are under the impression that just because something sold well, means it's good.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
PlayStation and Nintendo tend to slap labels on their bestsellers and endorse them with a general understanding that, hey man, you gotta try this one out. Over the pandemic, I tried so incredibly hard to play Infamous. I heard so many great things about it. The concept of an RPG superhero game really appealed to me. Until I played the game. The game had a great premise, but moving around as Cold feels floaty and unpleasant. The parkour and combat does not feel good. And again, doesn't look great anymore. Infamous isn't the only offender. There's plenty of other games with red labels or seals of approval. Despite that, no matter how great the premise is, no matter how many units it moved, how could a game be considered a classic when it's just not fun to play through anymore? In my opinion, there's nothing worse than starting something and then never being able to see its... Art is subjective. Every game means something to somebody. I'm not trying to hate. I just think it's important to recognize that the best games, and what can be considered a classic, is something timeless, something that later generations can pick up immediately and understand how a game earned its spot in history. People spend years of their lives creating these masterpieces, and in my opinion, I think it lowers the bar to place flashes in the pan next to the Mona Lisa. Earthbound, Assassin's Creed 2, Twilight Princess, Kingdom Hearts 2, Ratchet & Clank 3, Mass Effect, Ultimate Alliance, Smash Bros, Sly 2, Cuphead. These are all games that I can say with full certainty were fun then, they're still fun now, and they will continue to be fun well into the future, where I will likely be showing my future kids how incredible they are and what makes them